Hey guys, it's Jasma, and today we're making carrot corn soup with black fungus and ribs. Now, since everyone loves rib soup, and since the fresh sweet corns aren't in season, we're making a soup with the ribs, carrots, fresh corn, and some black fungus to make it filled with flavor and very healthy. This is a Chinese soup that is often eaten in my family, and it is also simple to make, so let's get started. For the ingredients you will need 500 grams of pork ribs, 2 corn cobs, 2 carrots, 2 sticks of green onions, 1 piece of ginger, around 30 grams, and 10 grams of dried black fungus. You will also need salt and pepper for taste. This is quite a popular soup, but we're going to make it a little special today because we're also going to be using the leaves of the corn cobs. So these are the fresh leaves. You can see the corn cob comes like this. I've cut off the bottom. I've already washed it. And then just peel off the leaves, and it should be really easy to do if you cut off a lot of the bottom. So you can throw away the leaves on the outside, but you want to keep the ones that are nice and fresh on the inside. We're going to be using these in the soup. And don't worry, we're not going to be eating it. We're just going to cook it with the soup, which is going to make it smell really good. We're going to be throwing it out while we eat the soup. So you can see it comes off really easily. You can see once you get to the corn cob, there are a lot of these stringy things. We're not going to be using this, so just get rid of all of that. I've already peeled the corn cob, so now we're going to wash this as well as the leaves that we just peeled off. Then cut it into 5 equal pieces for each corn on a cob, and then this is ready to be cooked into the soup. You can see I kept the leaves, they're all nice and fresh, and I've already cleaned it off. I've already prepared the corn, so now we can work on the fungus. This is dried black fungus, and I explain more about this in my turkey, meatball, and spaghetti soup video. So if you want to know more about this dried fungus, you can check out that video. Since this is dry, it's going to be really hard to cook, so we're just going to soak it in some water until it expands and softens. If you want to speed up this process, you could also just use warm water to soak this. And you could do this ahead of time because it could take up to 10 to 20 minutes. It's been about 10 minutes. You can see the dried fungus is no longer dry. It has expanded and it's nice and soft. So now we're just going to wash it until it's nice and clean. And you want to make sure you wash it carefully because there might be sand inside of this fungus. After the dried fungus is soaked, it is going to expand and puff up a lot. It would be really soft and squishy. So you really want to wash the wrinkles because there might be a lot of sand inside of it. That is now ready. So now chop up the carrots into nice and big cubes. Finally, chop the green onion and slice the ginger. Now in a big pot, boil some water and we're going to blanch the ribs. This is going to get rid of any of the excess blood water and keep the soup nice and fresh. Add the ribs into some boiling water. Be careful not splashing it on you. And we're just going to boil this for about a minute or so. You don't want to cook it for too long because that would get rid of the freshness of the ribs. So you just want to get rid of any of the excess blood water. You can see there are red stuff starting to float on top. That is the blood coming out of the bones and the meat. Cook this until it starts to boil. You could stir occasionally. You only want to cook this for a couple of minutes. If you cook it for too long, that would get rid of the freshness of the ribs. You can see there's now a layer of foam and it is starting to boil, so we're going to turn off the heat. We're going to rinse it under some running water. And you want to get rid of these things. That is the blood coming out of the bones. Just rinse it slightly, don't wash it for too long. The ribs are now really clean, so after it is rinsed, we can start to make the soup. All of the ingredients are now ready, so prepare a big pot. And on the bottom, we're going to lay down the leaves from the corn. And again, we're going to get rid of this after it is cooked. We're not going to be eating this. Now add in the ribs, the corn, the black fungus, the carrots, and the ginger slices. Once everything is in the pot, we're going to start to add water. The amount of water you're going to need is to cover everything and then another centimeter high of the water. Now we're going to cook this on high heat for about 10 minutes or until it starts to boil, and then turn it down to medium heat and cook it for another hour. The soup has been cooking for about 10 minutes. You can see it started to boil. So I'm going to turn it down to medium heat and then cook this for about an hour. The soup has been cooking for an hour. The ribs have now been cooked, but it has not been separated from the bone. And the carrot is nice and soft. You could be able to poke right through it. So now I'm going to turn off the heat. And now I'm going to remove all of the leaves from the corn that we have laid on the bottom. The soup is now cooked, and I'm going to share a couple of soup making tips that is often used in my family. So the first tip is to not overcook soup that has meat and vegetables inside of it, because if you cook it over 1.5 hours, then you would lose all of the proteins inside of the meat and the vitamins inside of the vegetables. Some people cook it up to 3 hours. Sure, the soup is going to taste very good, it's going to be full of flavors, but you're going to lose a lot of the nutrients. The second tip is to not add too much water to the soup. You're making soup, so obviously you're going to need some water, but we usually just add enough water to cover up all of the ingredients and about 1 centimeter high above that. That is the perfect amount of water. If you add too much water, then it's going to thin the whole flavor out, so it won't taste as good. That the more soup you drink, the more salt you're going to eat, so that's obviously not a good thing. And the third tip is also about water. You want to add enough water from the very beginning of when you make the soup, because it would evaporate while it's cooking. So if you want to add more water while it's cooking, you can only add hot or boiling water, because if you add cold water, it is going to lose a lot of its flavor as well. The fourth tip is to not speed up the process of its cooking. So usually we start to cook on high heat, and once it starts to boil, we turn it down to medium heat. You do not want to speed up this process, because if you cook it on high heat the whole entire time, the water is going to leak out of the pot, it's going to evaporate a lot of the water, and it's going to also lose a lot of its flavor. The fifth tip is about salt. So you always want to add salt after the soup is cooked, because if you add it right in the beginning and it tastes great, the water would evaporate while it's cooking, and it's going to be a lot saltier after the soup is cooked. The second reason is that if you add salt right in the beginning while you're cooking it, the meat is going to tighten up, so it won't be as soft, and it's going to make the vegetables lose a lot of its water, which would also affect the flavor. And finally, the last tip is, if you make a lot of soup and you know you're not going to finish it in one night, do not add the salt to the whole entire thing. Just add the salt to the amount that you're actually going to drink, because if you do not add any salt to the leftover soup, it could still stay fresh overnight. So it's always best to make the amount of soup that you know you're going to be able to finish in one night. I made a lot of soup here today because it's for my whole entire family. I'm not going to add any salt to the whole entire batch. I'm just going to show you how to add salt to the amount that you know you're going to be able to finish. And now we're going to add in the salt and the pepper. And finally, sprinkle on some green onion. I like to add a little bit of soy sauce to go with the ribs. The soup is now done. It smells really good and also looks good. So let's have a taste. This is perfectly cooked. You can see it's nice and soft, but it has not separated from the bone. When you're eating the ribs, you want to dip it into a little bit of soy sauce to give it a nice flavor. that's how I make carrot corn soup with black fungus and ribs. I pretty much finished this whole entire bowl. It's really tasty, full of flavor, and also quite healthy as well. So I hope you go try this out, follow my 6 tips, and you'll be making perfect soup in no time. Thanks for watching, and see you guys next time. Bye!